welcome back to the Super Centex Podcast, talking Central Texas high school football. With me, as always, are Chad Conine and DJ Ramirez. Gang.
And Eddie Van Halen.
And Eddie Van Halen behind Chad's shoulder. And the Big 12 on DJ's shirt. She's rocking the Big 12. So, good to see y'all. So let's jump right in, guys. It's a bye week for a lot of teams around the state. I think I read something like 34% of the teams in Texas. Naturally, there's a lot of 6-team districts. That's the way the UIL likes to do it in a perfect world. And so those districts tend to take their bye week before starting district play next week. But we've still got some good, maybe won't say good. We've still got some games on the board. Let's not jump ahead of ourselves.
We'll be able to fill the paper on Saturday.
Yes, we will have some games. How good they'll be, we'll see. Out of our local teams that are playing this week, who do you guys think most needs a win and why?
I'll let DJ take this one first.
Waco High?
They just need a win in general.
Yeah.
I think Midway as well, kind of building up from last week, and
yeah,
I don't know what else can I say.
No, that's good.
It's kind of crazy. It's September 28th today, right? As we film this.
Mm-hmm.
And most of our schools are halfway through their regular season schedule. We're going into week 6 of the high schools, and the NFL is just getting started. College feels like it's just getting started, and some of the teams have played a couple of district games already. And so you've had 5 games of sort of season development. And I think one interesting team in that regard is the Connally Cadets, because they started out 3-0 and got into the state rankings. And now all of a sudden they've given up 50 points in back-to-back weeks, and they need a turnaround. They go to Springtown, which is no slouch. Springtown is 2-3 at this point, but it's played a very good schedule. So Connally, I feel like, needs a win. And there was one other in that sort of category that I identified a minute ago. Oh, the Robinson Rockets. I believe they won their first 2 and it's since lost 3 in a row. So they would definitely like to sort of build on the momentum that they created earlier. And at Waxahachie Life, that's one of those tweener programs. I feel like they're not a powerhouse, and like I mentioned, Springtown, they're no slouch. So that'll be a big one for Robinson.
Yeah, absolutely. I think those are good answers, all of those. I will also throw in, to me, so this is the game DJ's going to, and low key, I think it may be the most entertaining game of the week. It certainly doesn't jump off the page in terms of their records or anything, but McGregor and Troy, they're both sitting at 1-4 on the year. They're 0-1 in district. And I think both of these programs, and there's probably a lot of teams that go into the season, right, with, hey, we're going to make the playoffs. We feel like we can make the playoffs. And I would say the Bulldogs and the Trojans are 2 of those teams, trying to get in at least that top 4 in that district. And, it's one of Calvin Klein's lesser known scents, but desperation. That's
what really, you wear, right, Bryce?
I have a wife, man. I know what you're talking about. I think that when you have desperation, it is a great motivator. And I think these teams are going to be desperate for a win. And one of them is going to come out happy, and one of them less so.
Yeah, I mean, we hadn't even got to October 1st yet. And the team that doesn't win that game, the team that wins that game is going to have a fighting chance for a playoff spot. Although, the Rockdale Tigers are going to be in the mix for 4th place there. And I kind of feel bad kind of framing the the standings in that district already because they barely even gotten started. But I mean, when you look up at the top and it's going to be Cameron and Lorena and Franklin, up there at the top, then that leaves a pretty brutal fight for a fourth place. I mean, Academy, Lorena's no guarantee at Academy this week.
No, it's not. That'll be an interesting game for sure. That's the one you're going to. Mm-hmm. And it would be pretty wild to think of Lorena potentially sitting here next week at 0-2 in district. But
right,
as you said, the bees can sting. So we'll see. I'm bringing the cheesy stuff today. We gotta ramp up the entertainment factor. So la-vega, let's talk about the la-vega Pirates. They bounced back nicely from consecutive losses to Midlothian Heritage and Lorena with a blowout win at homecoming over Dallas Roosevelt. A win, I think we all saw that one coming. So the Pirates are a historically tough, very physical outfit. This is going back to the Willie Williams days. They've carried that on with Don Hyde as their coach. So perhaps being backed into a corner is exactly what la-vega needed. Could you see this team rolling off, I don't know, let's say 9 wins in a row, which would put them in the regional finals in the playoffs, which is a nice run. I mean, that's a couple wins away from state. Do they have that kind of capability? What say you?
I think they'll have a hard time against China Spring.
Yeah, that's fair.
Because they got Waxahachie Life after this week, which they play Yoakum this week. And then China Spring, then Alvarado, then Stephenville. So like that, the end of district will definitely be a little bit tougher.
Mm-hmm.
If they can get past that, I think, in the playoffs, they'll do really well. So.
Chad?
la-vega, I don't know that there's another program in the area that loves the us against the world mentality more than the la-vega Pirates.
Yes, yeah.
And
I think that's fair.
They really have a chance to get their legs under them and then go into that China Spring game with a full head of steam and has the potential to be a great football game. And whoever wins that one, I mean, you still have Stephenville left, or I don't know, when is the China Spring Stephenville showdown? Is that coming up pretty quick?
We'd have to look that up, but China Spring plays San Antonio Cornerstone this week, and I'm not sure on the Stephenville matchup, but I mean, you're talking about 2 defending state champions in that la-vega district in Stephenville and China Spring. So those games, mm-hmm. it probably will be hard for China Spring to roll off a winning streak like I'm talking about. But
you mean la-vega?
I mean la-vega, excuse me. Yeah. Sorry, we were talking about la-vega. But as you said, Chad, I do feel like this is a program that embraces that sort of us against the world thing. There's a sports writer, he used to be at ESPN, he's now at the Ringer, Bill Simmons. Really all he does now is podcasts. He hasn't written anything in like forever, but he always used to call it the nobody believes in us idea, and I think la-vega, well, I was talking with Don Hyde before the season, and he actually was already using that, saying, hey, look, everybody's talking about China Spring and Stephenville. Nobody's talking about the la-vega Pirates. And so he was already using that as motivation. And so we'll see. I don't think this is obviously a vintage la-vega team, that we're used to seeing. They already have more losses than we're accustomed to seeing la-vega. But, they've played some good teams too. So I feel like, the China Spring and Stephenville games are going to be tough. I think they'll win against Alvarado and Waxahachie Life. And, can they make a run in the playoffs? Maybe.
By the way, that district sets up perfect for television, because on October 14th, you've got China Spring la-vega.
Mm-hmm.
And then on October 21st, you got China Spring Stephenville. And then on October 28th, you've got la-vega Stephenville.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, that kind of builds for sure. So guys, as wild as this would have sounded a couple weeks ago, I honestly think the game of the week is the one that I'm going to. And that's Midway at Harker Heights. So the Panthers exploded offensively last week. A lot of big plays in a district opening win over Hutto. Junior Thornton, who we've talked about here on the podcast, he accounted for 6 touchdowns. He had 3 rushing, 2 passing, 1 receiving on a very well-executed trick play on a fake punt. I know you guys haven't had the chance to see Midway like I have this year. Chad covered them once. But what are y'all thinking? So forget just making the playoffs. I think, that's certainly in play when you're 1-0 in district. Can the Panthers compete with the likes of Harker Heights and Temple, who are their next 2 opponents, by the way, and also sort of the favorites in that district? I mean, so could they contend for the district title? What do you think?
DJ, you want to jump in there on that one?
I'm never going to say no one ever has a chance.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, obviously football's not baseball, so it can't be like, oh, anything can happen, because obviously there are really good teams that are obviously, gonna, they execute, so they produce. I mean, Midway's got spunk and they really want it. And so I'm not going to say, oh, Harker Heights is going to beat them, even though Harker Heights is currently 4-1. And, same with Temple. I think they have a chance if they execute.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Chad, what do you think?
I mean, you really have to applaud Midway for they fell behind against Hutto, right? I mean,
Correct.
maybe even by double digits.
Or
just a touchdown?
Yeah, I think it was just a touchdown, but I'd have to go back and look, but certainly it was back and forth early.
Right. And when you're 0-4 and you're behind at home and maybe at a game that could go either way, to be resilient and fight through that. And apparently they've really found something, like you mentioned, with Junior Thornton at quarterback, that could breathe new life into them. And Harker Heights has, historically not been an insurmountable opponent for Midway. They've played each other in a lot of district games over the last decade or so before Midway went into that district of doom. And so I'd be surprised if Midway wasn't at least competitive. And of course they're going on the road, right? It's at Harker Heights.
Yeah. It's at Leo Buckley.
But that's somewhere that Midway has played a lot now. In particular, Jeff Hume teams didn't seem to play particularly well at Leo Buckley Stadium. They'd go into games that they should have won easily and limp away with like a 3-point win sometimes. Against Colleen one time, in particular, that I remember. But I really think Midway has a chance to gain some momentum, and those kids kind of be like, hey, we're still here, we're still Midway. And I feel like, in a way it's a pivotal game, because if Harker Heights beats them, then they're a really big underdog against Temple next week. So
yeah, I would say it would depend on the way Harker Heights beat them, maybe.
Right.
So I'll obviously address this with a fair amount of institutional knowledge, having seen Midway times. But so they're going to first of all, to answer my own question, can they compete with these 2 teams that they're going to play the next 2 weeks and potentially compete for a district title? I think they can. One thing they're going to have to do is play better defensively. And so that game against Hutto, I don't know how much y'all were able to follow it, but it was big play. And they were just trading these, long touchdowns. And then the second half came And Midway got a couple of really key defensive stops. That helped a lot, obviously. And then the other thing they did, I thought, to me, this was as big as anything in the game, was they went on one of these 3-yard, 4-yard, 2-yard, 1-yard, 5 yards, kind of long clock sapping drives, right? It took 7 minutes off the clock. It kept that explosive Hutto offense off the field. And I asked Shane about it after the game, and he's like, yeah, when it's big play, everybody's just waiting for the big play. But he said you're able to, what he called, churn it out, that's when the other team goes, and the way he described it was, they go, whoa, they're good, because they're starting to establish something,
I totally get what you're saying, and it brings up something that I observed over the weekend that has to be mentioned on a football podcast. I have to bring this up because people don't value short running plays and like smash mouth running plays, right? I sit in the stands, and I've been sitting in the stands more this college football season than ever before, or at least since I was a little kid. And all you ever hear the fans say is, throw the ball down the field, throw the ball down the field. And people are actually complaining, that, all they ever do on first down is run. They'll run for 1 yard on first down. Well, you have to run like some of the time. Otherwise, the defensive line, they're going to come off the ends with no hesitation, with no slowdown, and they're going to be coming after you every play. So you have to run. And even if you only get 1 yard, you still got to try to get that 1 yard, and you got to, why do you do it on first down? Because you got to stay ahead of the chains, right? If you can get 1 yard on first down, you're 1 yard ahead of the chains. If you throw an incomplete pass on first down and then you try to run on second down and you get 1 yard, then you're in 3rd and 9, and that's a terrible place to be.
Yeah.
So people need to understand that when your team runs for 1 yard or 2 yards, accept it as the cost of doing business. It's the exact same as when your pitcher is ahead 0-2 in the count and throws a waste pitch, right?
Yeah.
You got to keep them honest.
No, that's a great point. And I feel like Midway won the game with that kind of slow churning drive, because Hutto is standing over there just twiddling its thumbs. I can't get the ball. And and it wasn't anything, huge. They didn't gash him for a lot of yards, but I think you make a great point, Chad. And certainly 2nd and 9 is better than 2nd and 10,
Yeah, because 2nd and 9, you can get to 3rd and 5 a lot easier.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know. Offense is a process that not very many football fans really grasp,
Yeah. I will also mention one other thing about Midway. So after the game, big win for the Panthers. They're on the board. They're 1-0 in district. Great start to district against an explosive Hutto team. And I go down, and Shane always does an interview with the radio first. Craig Smoke, they're broadcasting their games. I listened to a little bit of that. And then he went and talked to the team. He told me, hey, I'll catch you in just a second. And I'm like, that's fine. And he came and talked to me. And a recurring theme in all those addresses, both on the radio, both to his team, and to me, was where he was talking about the naysayers and what the naysayers had said about Midway and yada, yada, yada. And so you talk about a team that's embracing that us against the world kind of thing. And even in the course of the interview with me, he goes, all the naysayers, they were saying, he said, like, I didn't even pick up the paper today. I don't even know if you picked us. And I said, I did. And he goes, okay. And he just kept going, And I noticed also after the game that he went and flexed on Twitter to an earlier tweet from mine from early in the game where I had put Midway versus Hutto, and it was 0-4 versus whatever Hutto's record was, and 3-1 or whatever. And he replied to that tweet and said Midway is 1-0 in district. And I was like, well, yes, Shane, you are. I didn't even respond, but I do love the flags. But at the time when I wrote that tweet, they were 0-4. Yes, I know.
I guess I was one of the naysayers because I was the only one that didn't pick him against Hutto.
I guess, but I think I think he heard a lot about the fact that they were 0-4, and I think he truly believed that this schedule would prepare them. And so it was a little bit of validation, and I can understand flexing when that happens. I mean, it's like, okay, look, we are good, I mean, so good for Midway. All right. So wanted to get to this question last week. We'll talk about it this week instead. So I was talking with Mike Cadell. Chad knows Mike.
He's a fellow Top Golf leaguer.
Oh my gosh. Probably has a better physique than anyone out there at Top Golf, I would say.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean they have the best scores.
Oh, ouch. So Mike, former Axtell head coach, and now has coached at la-vega for several years as an assistant coach. And he introduced me to a platform with which I wholeheartedly agree during this conversation that we were having. And that is that the Frito pie is the be-all, end-all, greatest high school football concession food. What say my panel here? Do you agree? Do you disagree? And if you disagree, I'm going to need what you say is the greatest high school concession food. DJ?
I feel like Frito pie is the same thing as nachos. You're just replacing the chip. So
it's got chili on it.
You can put chili on nachos.
That's true. You can.
I mean, it is pretty good. I can't think of anything that would. I went to high school in Louisiana, and our principal used to cook concessions for us sometimes. So we had some pretty good burgers and wings, and sometimes jambalaya. So
jambalaya at a high school game. That's stepping it up your game there.
Yeah, it was more for baseball because his son played both football and baseball, but it was easier for baseball because not as many people.
Always comes back to baseball.
I don't know. I could go for some jambalaya at a game. That wouldn't be a bad go.
Yeah. Now, I don't know. I miss Cajun food.
Fair enough. To me, the perfect concession stand food in a lot of cases is the sausage wrap.
I was gonna say that's a good one because it's portable, right? It's real portable.
Yeah, it's convenient. It's tasty. You can get a couple of them. It's like I'm kind of hungry and I need to get through the end of the game. I gotta get all the way to deadline. So give me a couple of sausage wraps.
But it is such a ghetto Texas thing. It's like, what can we do with this tortilla? Let's put a sausage in it. That sounds good.
Right. But I will say,
I don't know who came up with the sausage wrap, but it's kind of genius in a trashy way.
But 30 years ago, when I was in high school and that first cool snap would hit and be looking forward to going to the high school football game, because as a high school student, I never missed a game. I didn't play football, but I was always there. When that first cool snap would hit and we'd have a road game, I would just sit there in class and daydream about getting the Frito pie that night,
Yeah. So here's to me where the Frito pie does elevate itself. If you can find the people that are still giving you the Frito pie in the bag,
I knew you were going to say that,
where they cut the bag and they use that as the bowl, and then you get like, it's really hot and cheesy, and you get the little plastic spork sticking out of it. I mean, that's as good as it gets, man. That's good stuff. And you get like Frito pie all over your face and your clothes. You look like a sports writer, So
I like a little bit of jalapenos in my Frito pie, though, too.
Yeah, that's a good call. That's a good call. All right. So everybody go enjoy your Frito pies this week. And we'll see you guys at the games.
Sounds good. I think I will have a Frito pie this week. Sounds good.
Yeah.